The air in that arena was electric, suffocating almost, as Roman Reigns lay defeated in the ring at Crown Jewel. The tribal chief, the man who had dominated WWE for over 1,200 days, had just suffered a stunning loss that nobody saw coming. But as the Saudi Arabian crowd erupted in disbelief, something far more sinister was brewing backstage. Because while everyone was focused on what just happened in that ring, Dean Ambrose was watching. And he wasn't watching Roman. He was watching Bronson Reed, that 330-pound wrecking ball who had been circling the main event scene like a shark smelling blood in the water. If you want to witness more jaw-dropping moments like this, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because we're bringing you the most intense highlights that you won't find anywhere else. Now, let me paint you a picture of what went down in the moments after that bell rang at Crown Jewel. Roman Reigns, the man who had carried WWE on his back through the pandemic era, through family drama, through every challenge thrown his way, was lying on his back staring at the lights. The Bloodline's grip on power had finally loosened, and in that moment of vulnerability, the entire landscape of WWE shifted. But here's where it gets interesting. Dean Ambrose, the lunatic fringe himself, the man who helped build the Shield alongside Roman years ago, he saw something that night that made his blood run cold. Bronson Reed had been sitting and catering, according to backstage sources, and when Roman hit the canvas for the 3 count, Reed stood up with a smile that could freeze hell itself. Not the smile of someone enjoying good wrestling. No, this was the smile of a predator who just realized the alpha of the pack was wounded. And Dean Ambrose, being the street-smart veteran that he is, he picked up on that energy immediately. Because Dean knows what it's like to hunt. He knows what it's like to see an opportunity and strike. But he also knows loyalty, even if that loyalty has been tested, stretched, and complicated over the years. The history between Ambrose and Reigns runs deeper than most fans realize. These weren't just teammates who wore matching tactical gear and dominated the WWE for years. They were brothers in every sense of the word except blood. They fought together, they bled together, they conquered together. Sure, they've had their differences. The Shield broke up more times than anyone can count, and each breakup was more brutal than the last. But there's a code between these men, an unspoken understanding that when the chips are down, when the vultures start circling, they've got each other's backs. Bronson Reed represents everything that modern WWE has become obsessed with: size, power, and an absolute disregard for human safety. This is a man who delivers tsunami splashes from the top rope that have ended careers. This is someone who doesn't just beat his opponents, he tries to erase them from existence. His matches don't end with victories, they end with medical evaluations and stretchers. And now, with Roman vulnerable, with the throne seemingly up for grabs, Reed sees his moment to ascend to the top of the mountain by stepping on the fallen tribal chief's body. But Dean Ambrose wasn't about to let that happen without sending a message first. The confrontation happened in the parking garage of the arena, away from the cameras, away from the production crew, away from the sanitized environment that WWE usually operates in. This is where real business gets handled, where the corporate polish gets stripped away and you're left with raw, unfiltered intensity. Dean caught Reed heading to his rental car, still wearing that smug expression, still riding high on the chaos that Roman's loss had created. And according to multiple eyewitnesses who were present, what Dean said wasn't loud, wasn't theatrical, wasn't designed for the cameras. It was cold, calculated, and absolutely terrifying in its simplicity. You go near him, you even think about him, and I'll make sure you never walk out of an arena on your own power again. No raised voice. No dramatic gestures. Just a promise delivered with the kind of conviction that makes you believe every single word. Because Dean Ambrose isn't someone who makes empty threats. His entire career has been built on following through, on backing up his words with actions so violent and so decisive that people think twice before crossing him. Reed might outweigh Dean by 70 pounds, might have the size advantage, might have the momentum of being WWE's newest monster, but in that parking garage, none of that mattered. What Dean was really saying in that moment went beyond just protecting Roman. He was drawing a line in the sand about respect, about the way business is conducted, about the difference between being an opportunist and being a warrior. Roman Reigns, for all his faults, for all the times he's played the manipulative tribal chief, earned his position at the top through years of grinding, through carrying the company, through being the most consistent performer WWE has had in decades. Bronson Reed? He's been impressive, sure. He's been destructive, absolutely. But he hasn't earned the right to pick apart a wounded legend like a scavenger. The wrestling world has changed so much in recent years. Gone are the days when you had to pay your dues, work your way up the card, prove yourself against all challengers before you got your shot at the main event. Now, with the right viral moment, with the right spot on social media, someone can leapfrog years of development and find themselves in positions they haven't earned. Reed's rise has been meteoric, but it's also been built on the broken bodies of people who couldn't defend themselves. Taking out legends during injury comebacks, attacking from behind, using his size advantage when numbers are in his favor. That's not how you earn respect in Dean Ambrose's eyes. That's how you make an enemy. The backstage reaction to Dean's threat has been mixed, from what insiders are reporting. Some of the veterans nodded in approval, understanding that sometimes someone needs to speak up and draw that line. The younger roster members were shocked, maybe even a little scared, because they're not used to seeing that level of intensity outside of the choreographed segments. But Bronson Reed? His reaction is what's most interesting, because according to those same sources, Reed didn't back down, didn't flinch, didn't show any sign of intimidation. He just stared at Dean for a long moment, then got in his car and drove away. Which means this is far from over. What makes this situation so explosive is the timing. Roman Reigns is at his most vulnerable right now. The aura of invincibility has been shattered. The bloodline storyline that has dominated WWE television for years is entering a new chapter, and nobody knows where it's heading. GUSO has gone his own way. Jimmy USO has had his own struggles. Solo Sikoa has been trying to assert himself. The family structure that made Roman so dangerous is fracturing, and into that chaos steps Bronson Reed, seeing an opportunity to make his name by taking out the biggest name in the business. But he didn't account for the wild card. He didn't account for Dean Ambrose still having Roman's back despite everything they've been through. The beauty of this situation from a fan perspective is that there are no clear heroes or villains here. Dean Ambrose has done enough questionable things in his career that you can't just call him a good guy. Roman Reigns has spent years being the manipulative, gaslighting head of a family cult who made everyone around him miserable. And Bronson Reed, while aggressive and opportunistic, is just doing what any ambitious wrestler would do, seeing an opening and trying to take it. This is wrestling at its most real, most complicated, most interesting. This is what happens when you strip away the simple good versus evil narratives and let human nature drive the story. The question now becomes what happens next. Does Reed back off, respecting the warning from a legitimate legend of the business? Or does he see Dean's threat as just another challenge to overcome, another obstacle on his path to the top? And where does Roman fit into all of this? Is he grateful for Dean's protection, or does his pride prevent him from accepting help from anyone, even a former brother-in-arms? These are the questions that are going to drive WWE programming in the coming weeks, and the answers aren't going to be simple. One thing we know for certain is that Dean Ambrose doesn't make threats lightly. His entire persona is built on unpredictability, on being willing to go further than anyone else to prove a point. If Reed decides to test those words, if he decides to make a move on Roman anyway, the fallout is going to be catastrophic. We're talking about a potential rivalry that could redefine what hardcore wrestling looks like in the modern era. Reed's size and power against Ambrose's cunning and absolute disregard for his own safety? That's a collision course that ends with someone's career in jeopardy. But there's also a deeper story here about loyalty and legacy. Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns came up together, built their names together, achieved things together that most wrestlers only dream about. The Shield wasn't just a faction, it was a brotherhood that changed WWE forever. And even though that brotherhood has been tested, even though they've gone their separate ways and had their conflicts, when push comes to shove, they're still brothers. That's what makes Dean's threat so powerful. He's not defending Roman because he needs anything from him. He's not doing it for glory or attention. He's doing it because some bonds don't break, no matter how much time passes or how complicated things get. Bronson Reed has built his reputation on being unstoppable, on being the kind of force that breaks through any obstacle, but he's about to learn that there are different kinds of obstacles. You can power through most things with size and strength, but you can't power through someone who's willing to sacrifice everything, including their own well-being, to prove a point. Dean Ambrose has nothing left to prove to anyone. He's already a world champion, already a legend, already cemented his place in wrestling history, which makes him more dangerous than ever, because he has nothing to lose and everything to give. The crown jewel loss might have knocked Roman Reigns down, but it also woke up something that had been dormant. It reminded everyone that the Shield's legacy isn't just about what they did together in the past. It's about what they're willing to do for each other in the present. And if Bronson Reed thinks he can capitalize on Roman's moment of weakness without consequences, he's about to get a very violent education in loyalty, respect, and what happens when you cross the lunatic fringe. This is far from over,